are at Commissioner comments, and Ed Hunsinger.
Commissioners, it's been a long time coming, but earlier this year in May when I delivered the budget to you, I made a recommendation that I thought we could provide the workforce, the 3,100 people that are in your budget, a salary increase. The dollars were in the budget. We just had to come to an agreement between the constitutionals and the county administrator about a recommendation to the board. If I might, county employees have not received a salary increase for the last 5 years. With the FRS shift and the employee health premium contribution, employees are struggling mightily. This is all 3,100. Recognizing that we're beginning to have challenges in maintaining our place in the employment market, it's time to provide a salary increase for the 3,100 employees under the board and constitutional officers. As presented in my budget recommendation to you, we have been working with the constitutional officers on a plan to make changes to our benefits, which will allow us to shift some funding into salary increases. Funds for a nominal salary increase in roughly the 3% range can be provided in the budget that has been presented to the board. The funds are embedded in every constitutional officer's budget before you today, and I do not believe we require any change to the tentative budget that you'll be addressing tomorrow night. Our health benefit program remains strong, in part due to the strong culture of health, which has been imputed throughout the organization and proactive ownership employees are taking in their own health care. I think you saw that recently with the 10,875 pounds lost in the Y-Weight program. Our health care plan has reduced the number of inpatient days and has seen other cost reductions that allow us to reduce the county portion of premiums and reallocate those savings. We will also see savings from our transition to Aetna Network. These efforts are anticipated to result in an overall savings of over $4 million in health benefit costs. Those are ongoing costs, not one time only. Many entities across the country, both private and public, have migrated to a personal time off, referred to as PTO, or universal leave approach, and abandoned the traditional segregated time off of sick and annual leave programs. Employees tend to value both the flexibility and control that PTO provides, and employers appreciate the greater oversight of unscheduled days off. One of the biggest challenges in changing from a traditional leave program to a PTO approach is how to handle the existing balances of vacation and sick leave that employees have accumulated over the time of their employment. We recognize the anxiety that this has created and wish to reinforce that this program will allow employees to maintain and utilize their current balances and simply decrease future accruals. As indicated, this money is already in the budget before the board. Each agency, including the clerk of the courts, property appraiser, sheriff, and the supervisor of elections, can take the money allocated and provide raises to our 3,100 employees in conjunction with the conversion to paid time off. Current accruals from these different agencies differ based on historical practices, and the conversion will be dependent on the varying schedules, needs, and practices of each constitutional officer. For those 40-hour employees under the Board of County Commissioners, the proposal is an average reduction of 56 hours per year. Again, this doesn't impact current balances of vacation and sick leave, only future accruals. In summary, the proposed realignment of our compensation and benefits package presented above has been developed to be an integrated program that will position us to have a sustainable, fiscally responsible program that will meet the needs of our current and future employees. Once in place, there should be additional benefits from decreased administration of benefits and reduced potential for abuse of sick policies, as well as increased flexibility for employees. This change in benefit program will also significantly reduce our accrued compensation-related liabilities on the balance sheet of the county and improve our financial position with respect to the county financial statements. As I said, these dollars are in the budget that we presented to you back in May. We've been working diligently over the summer with the constitutional officers, and because of the different accrual rates and management of those, there's no consistent answer. What we've requested of those is for each of the constitutional officers to participate in the program and keep the money that's in their budget today and afford them the opportunity to do salary increases and a change to paid time off. Now, we think the change in the paid time off from the vacation and sick leave is something that will take some changes in our computer programming, and those wouldn't be effective until probably the first of the year. We're working out those details. We're pretty sure that we could make that conversion on or about January 1, and that the dollar amount that you have in the budget today would afford them all the opportunity to give their employees salary increases in whatever means they propose to do that. Again, the constitutional officers all can give salary increases within the dollar amount that I've identified at their portion of that $4 million plus, but they all don't have to do it the same way. Some might want to do across-the-board increases, some might want to do pay for performance. Whatever methodology they choose to give salary increases would be up to them. We do not have, as a board, the authority to tell them how to do that. You just provide the money, as you all well know. That's my recommendation, and I thought I would put it before you today before you get into your public hearing tomorrow night.
Thursday night.
Excuse me, Thursday night.
Not confuse us anymore than we
I
are.
was, I know.
We just
Not on
forgot
Oh,
on
you're
it.
not going to be here
Not on my
Thursday?
calendar yet, but I'm sure
It
it'll
is
be there.
now, hopefully.
So that's the proposal. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have relative to this, and hopefully I can answer them. If not, I'll get back to you quickly.
Commissioner Whitmore.
So what currently has been the practice for years, which has been vacation time and sick time. And what you've done now is now those will be eliminated, those two terminologies, and it will be called paid time off.
There's
Correct.
actually three terminologies. There's vacation, there's sick, and then personal time off.
Oh,
All three of those would be eliminated, and we would just go to paid time off.
so, and that would be like normal where you get so much per pay period, like in the past, but any future accruals, and that's what we heard from the sheriff's office when they were before us last week, but future accruals, they would still be in. This is starting once we pass this from then on, correct? Now, you said that in the constitutionals and us, each department has so much money in their fund for healthcare, and that's where each department, i.e. the constitutionals and the general government are getting that money from, right? Because of the money saved from the healthier employees, et cetera.
Yes, and let me add, there's really two savings here. One is the savings from the Healthy Employee Healthcare Network that you put together. And the second savings is the savings to the financial statements, which is a long-term savings to the county as to the amount that would be on the books as a liability for these vacation and sick leave. Years ago, a number of governments could give employees, their employees, time off, and it wouldn't be any recorded liability. Then, I guess it was in the late 90s, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, better known as GASB, issued a promulgation that required governments to make their financial statements look more like the private sector's financial statements and start recognizing the liabilities that they have. And one of the biggest liabilities government have is the accumulation of time off for their employees that they would eventually have to pay for, which caused a number of governments across the country to start changing how they did that because it was detrimental to their financial position, which again related to a detriment in their credit rating. If your liabilities go up, your equity goes down. And so a number of governments across the country have over the years made the transition to reducing that liability by coming up with alternate programs, guaranteeing, for the most part, employees' current balances. This really affects new employees and how much employees will earn in the future. It doesn't affect any of the long-term employees that are preparing to retire and what they would expect in payouts for their unused leave time. This is all prospective, not retrospective. I hope that helps.
Yep, good, thanks.
Commissioner Gallen.
Do we have I guess, an expectation of savings between PTO versus the
the old way, vacation, sick and personal? Is there, do we have that?
Well,
handy?
each constitutional will have a different methodology because they're all different. They all have their own personnel policies, their procedures. And so they can or cannot implement this their way. We expect if you earn fewer hours going forward, that you would expect a correspondent reduction in future liabilities that will be earned by employees. How much that is, it's hard to tell because you don't know when any of the employees, well, those coming current for retirement, but you could have an employee that's been here 10 years and 48 years old, and they leave, they would take that with them. So you never know when the employees are going to leave to know when you're going to have these payouts. It's a difficult calculation. We're just trying to approach it in a more business-like fashion that other governments have gone through, and certainly in the private sector, paid time off is a standard practice on that side. And again, we're trying to approach this in a way that is more business-like and trying to get a hold of the power curve because we hear there's some rumblings in Tallahassee that if we don't do this, they'll mandate it for us anyway in the coming legislative sessions. So it's best to get out in front of this issue.
Okay, so we don't have one yet for the county, at least, for county employees. Okay. And recently, you know, with everything going on, it's been highlighted that, you know, with the mandate from the state a couple years, last year regarding FRS payments, I know that's wrapped up in the courts right now,
Yeah.
the retirement system payments, but those recurring dollars, are those available right now, or have we directed those, have we appropriated those dollars?
No, we don't have any dollars that we've set aside in case we had to pay the employees back. No, we haven't addressed that issue. We have no idea where the court's going to go with that issue. We'll deal with it when it comes. But the expectation is that the requirement to pay back the employees is on the low end of the assumption. There's a number of other avenues the courts can take. They could stop the process. They could, I think it's a better question for the county attorney's offices where that litigation is going. But the expectation that there would be a payback to all the employees across the state and all the local governments involved in FRS is not assumed to be likely.
Okay, and it was thrown out because it's been thought of as an idea that the sheriff's department FRS dollars were being sort of held as a potential source for funding for, you know, the issues that they have with compression and salaries.
No.
So there's no availability there. There's just,
No.
okay.
Commissioner McClash?
If I was a county employee and I was listening to this conversation, I would really have to say, what the heck is it all about? Because you're saying that some constitutionals will do their own thing, we'll do our thing, but that's the, I guess, challenge that you were supposed to figure out was the specifics, and that's what I was expecting to hear when this came forward. So other than the 56-hour-a-week hit that they're going to take, that's what I heard, what is their max now, and what's the max going to be underneath your program? Because you said 56 hours. I wrote down 56 hours
Per year.
per year.
Per year going forward, those are the employees under the Board of County Commission, the employees under the Board of County Commissioners, which will be different than the employees for each of the constitutional
Right, so-
officers, because they all earn something different.
What's the max now?
Well, it depends on your tenure here with the county. The vacation accrual that you earn is dependent on how many years of service you've had within this county government. You start off with 10 days and you can go up to 20 days.
Right,
or
but
25.
everybody's maxed out at a certain amount according to the personnel policy. You can't carry over any more than X amount.
No, you can carry over, they have it on their books. When you leave, and you're only going to get paid for a certain number.
Right.
I think it's around 500 hours of
Are you changing that?
I think the maximum payout we're proposing going forward for new employees is 480.
So it's 20 hours.
400.
But all the existing employees that are on board today will get paid for their vacation and sick leave accrual in the same manner they're getting paid for it today. We're not changing any of that.
So if the new person coming on is the only person affected,
Yes,
but you'll earn less per year,
yes, sir.
as far as everybody will earn less per year.
Yes.
In that range, you don't know the specifics of. Can you get a summary sheet possibly that could just help us?
Well, we could give you, yeah, based on an employee that's been here 1 year versus 5 years versus
I
10
think it would-
versus 15.
I think it would help because it's really vague, you know. Everybody's going to say, well, how does it affect me? And I don't think a lot of people really, you know, maybe understand the specifics even of their benefits. Sometimes they should, but, you know, as you know, there's a lot of people that just depend that you're doing the right thing to them. And then at the end of the year, what does that mean to them? So I would just like to make sure that we have something that we could publicize that has a little bit more, this is where you're at, this is where you're not going to get changed in the future, and then this is the change. Basically, it's the earning change per year as far
Yes.
as that's approximately the 56 hours.
Yes.
Approximately 56 hours?
No,
or is it-
56 hours going forward.
Okay,
After it gets approved.
yeah, so it hasn't been approved. When are we approving it, Thursday night? Or are we going to approve it later on, because it's
I
not
think we can
passed?
give you an agenda item that would be coming up at an upcoming board meeting. I don't think, I'll check with Jim Seifert on the county attorney's office. This doesn't require a budget change because the money's already in
Right,
the
yes, sure.
budget. It's a policy change in their personnel policies.
All right, as far as the savings to the sheriff, how much money did the sheriff save when we changed to Aetna in his constitutional budget? Because you.
Well, it's a change in, there's two parts to the savings. It's the savings that we get from reduced cost.
Right.
And the change from Aetna. To the sheriff, that total change is in the neighborhood of 1.5 million.
1.5 million? Okay, that's pretty substantial. And then he'll have the ability to do whatever he wants. If he doesn't choose to do something like this, then he wouldn't have any savings. But the savings in all this PTO, this paid time off, isn't real dollars, as we discussed. So you don't have that.
That would move, yes,
That, you don't have that in your budget.
no.
Okay. You know, I'm really concerned with the sheriff's compression, and I'm just going to put a motion on the floor that county administrator work with the sheriff to allocate the $3.2 million needed for the compression of the sheriff's deputies. That's my motion.
Second for discussion.
We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner McClash, second from Commissioner Gallen. Commissioner DeSabatino is next.
Oh, and I know I'm having trouble following this, so I'm sure most people that are listening right now are having real trouble following this. I mean, we just got this packet. That'll be my second question, but the 3.2 million, you're saying that that's savings from where, Mr. McClash?
Mr. Chairman, the 3.2 million is what the sheriff needs to take in consideration the compression of his deputies. And so it's not a dollar amount that he's actually saving from the Aetna. The Aetna is 1.5 million. So that means that there's probably $1.7 million. I don't want to figure it out. You know, I think when we left before our break, we asked the county administrator to deal with the sheriff and try to work on a solution to the compression issue. That's my recollection. You know, I just think it's an issue that's urgent. And if it's not resolved, then you're going to face the consequences in the future. So is it worth $1.7 million, maybe out of a budget stabilization account, or maybe there's other savings that the sheriff has actually proffered up? I don't know. I think, you know, the policy statement of the board is just very simple. Solve the compression issue if it's 3.2 for the certified officers, and we're just talking certified officers, then, you know, that's what the motion takes into consideration.
And can we dialogue?
Yeah, please.
So the one, how much does he usually have in excess each year and returns back? So
1.9
then
last year.
Maybe that could be part of that money.
Last year.
It varies, but the sheriff might have enough money in his contingency to take care of the other 1.7. I think it's just a policy statement going into the budget hearing that basically we take action and say, deal with the compression issue. That's what the motion's about.
So, Mr. Hunter, you're estimating that there's going to be this is another issue, the 4 million possibly savings from the Aetna. But I heard from some of the other constitutional officers that they thought it was like 5, 8, or 9 million savings total for all county employees.
No,
No?
no. We estimate it's roughly $4.3 million would be available from that savings. And that is currently in each of the constitutional's budgets, and the sheriff's portion of that is, I think, 1.5 million. The rest is spread out through the other constitutionals and all the boards and funds of the Board of County Commissioners that you have. There's 150 funds, and it's spread out through all of those. I believe, I'm concerned, the last time the sheriff was here, he said he needed $5.5 million when he delivered his budget to the
5.2.
board.
I confirmed it with the sheriff. It was a $3.2 million number. If you want, I could get him on the phone, but I asked him specifically certified. That was not just certified, that was everybody.
So, but for now, there could theoretically be 1.5 million savings from the Aetna. So I know McClash is saying 3.2, we could have 1.5. Also, you know, if we do that, how's EMS gonna factor into this?
You have pay compression in
Everywhere.
EMS, but you have pay compression throughout this government. I would suggest if you want to talk about pay compression, you might want to have a workshop and have everyone talk about their pay compression issues. That not just the sheriff, not just public safety, it's throughout this government. Because over the last 5 years, with no salary increases anywhere, a new employee hired within the last 6 months is making the same amount of money as an employee hired 6 years ago. It is rampant throughout the government. I think it's an issue that you may want to discuss.
Right, but they're all gonna come forward on Thursday, looking for some answers.
I think based on this conversation, you'll hear from them,
Okay.
all of them.
Since they brought up a possibility of unionization with the EMS and the sheriff,
Transit.
in Florida, can government workers strike?
I will leave that question to the county attorney.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, that question is best left to my Deputy Assistant, Rob Eschenfelder. So, but I'm going to give you an off-the-cuff response. I do not believe that government employees in the state of Florida can lawfully strike. I don't believe so. But if Rob is listening, he can hustle down here and give us, I'm certain, a textbook,
You now.
a textbook full of information on the subject matter.
And what can they lawfully, in your terminology, do as a collective entity?
I'm sorry?
What can they lawfully do as a collective entity?
And as a bargaining unit, unionized,
Yes.
you know, they can bargain for pay and benefits and work hours.
Picket.
Yes.
Sue?
Like you're
Sue?
Sue?
Sue? Can I continue?
Oh, yeah, please, you're not done.
So, again, I know that I'm having some difficulty with this, and I'll read my handy-dandy cheat sheet tonight. So, this new term PTO, not to be confused with the
Parent-teachers
parent-teacher organization,
Oh, I didn't think of that.
maybe you need to change that.
Could you move your mic closer just to be safe?
So this PTO, the current and new workers will have less hours that they can accumulate,
Yes.
correct? Okay, I just want to make this clear. There will be maximum amounts per year,
They
depending
can
upon your
earn.
formula.
Yes,
They will be able to continue carrying forward these things? They don't
Yes.
have to use it or lose it at the end of the year?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And then can you explain in our little handy-dandy packet, or maybe Mr. Seifer needs to come down, what is different in this packet
This
than?
isn't their This
the
isn't the packet,
CIP.
this is for.
That's the
third party.
CIP, that's the capital improvement program that I think somebody might have handed you
Okay.
for
So I didn't
Thursday's
know that-
discussion.
Thursday night.
It's just
Okay,
confusing.
so is there anything different in
No.
this packet?
No,
Okay,
there is differences identified in that cover memo. The rest is a lot of detail about the changes in the capital improvement program since we presented you with one back in May, the tentative capital improvement program, relating to the ball fields, relating to a couple of other budget amendments you've approved that would impact the CIP in future years, but it has nothing to do with this salary issue.
Right.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gallen.
I mean, like, when we all want to do something, and, you know, we've come a long way, though. I mean, not too long ago, Commissioner Bussell brought up having a, I don't know, if it was a penny tax or something for, we talked about the detention center, the sheriff's department, EMS, and all that. So now we got to the point where there actually may be dollars available. But yeah, I would like more clarification, and not right now, but the PTO versus sick and vacation and personal, what is, how much is the savings? Because every department is different, and I would hate to flip the sheriff's benefits, and then it becomes an office where it's got poor benefits, a little bit better pay, and then you still have this issue of whether it's quality to work in the sheriff's department or not. So that's tough to make today.
If I might, I think we're going to leave this to each constitutional, since they have their own personnel policies and procedures, to implement it however they see fit within their work unit,
Right.
Yeah.
to reduce the future liability to the taxpayers of this county, if they can do it. And so what I can provide you is what we're proposing to do with the workforce under the Board of County Commissioners, and give you a schedule that shows, based on tenure, what the implications are to the current employees.
Yeah.
And I think that might help you
Yeah.
understand
And my
this.
concern is, you know, 1.5 mil he'll have available, but then it's either cut the benefits and make up the other 1.7 or not. And that's why looking at this, you know, I hopefully we can find something and deal with this issue. And I'm still not clear on their FRS dollars, what, you know, since the employees are now paying them out, we used to cover that.
Well, the nearest I can tell, because the sheriff brought this up to me the last time I visited with him.
Yeah.
The FRS dollars are an overhead cost, if you will. Several years ago, FRS rates went up, and the sheriff came to you and asked for more money to cover his increased cost of FRS. It had nothing to do with the number of deputies, the number of cars, the number of anything that happens out there on the street. It was just this overhead cost. And you provided the sheriff more money to cover that additional cost. Subsequent to that, FRS came and reduced the rates. Well, we reduced the money we proposed to give to the sheriff because his cost for FRS went down. I was traveling on the theory, when the cost goes up, we give him more money. When the cost of FRS go down, we take it back. He wanted to keep it. And I think that's the discussion of what happened to the FRS money, was the FRS cost went down. And when it goes down, we reduce every budget that you fund, so you just fund them to the extent of what they have to pay off FRS. That goes to each department and agency within the Board of County Commissioners and each of the constitutional officers. Each year, we fund FRS to the amount that it's required by the state when the state publishes the FRS rates. We don't let them keep the good side and you fund the bad side.
Okay.
Commissioner Whitmore.
I'm not going to support the motion. The motion on the floor is for the 3.2 million, which is not even what we're discussing today for the sheriff, not all of public safety. So Commissioner DeSabatino, you're right, it's not going to cover EMS or the others. I think wasn't it 1.7 million? I heard 1.5 million.
1.5 is the Aetna savings to the sheriff.
But what, you had given us 1.7.
No?
No.
1 point.
It was 1.5, okay.
1.5.
So that's from the Aetna.
That's from the reduced claims cost
Yeah, 'cause
and
he said
Aetna.
Aetna. It's everything. That's
Yes.
what I thought when you explained this to me. Okay. it's not just Aetna. It's from the decreased hospitalizations, decreased uses of prescriptions, just like you're not using, you know.
As a broad term.
You know, well, no, Aetna, that's entirely different. That's paying claims. So, because I went over this yesterday. So what we're doing is the money that the sheriff, that you mentioned that we give him, he gives us back when he saves it, we give it back to him now. So he's probably got a use for that already, and I'm sure it's not gonna be for this. So we gotta remember that. We do give him back his money, but then he has whatever he wants to do with it. We don't, as you all know, we don't control what they do with their budgets. We just control their funding. So he can do whatever he wants with that. So I don't think he would want us to include that money as part of him trying to figure out how to do this raise thing, or this $3.2 million that Commissioner McClash is suggesting. He's used that money in the past for other things, and he has every right to, because we made that commitment to him. That's all.
Commissioner Bustle.
If I understand this correctly, we've got really two issues to resolve. We have, first of all, the issue of the PTO change, and that's a policy change, and it seems to me like that, you know, it's a well-thought-out alternative, and it looks like other people have used it, and it provides some light at the end of the tunnel. At least, if we implement it, then it offers the opportunity for maybe as much as a 3% raise. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The other part of the problem, is compensation in general. And of that, there's, you know, it's a multi-headed monster as well. There's the compression issue, and there's also the comparability issue. I believe the motion, unfortunately, I'm sorry I can't support it. I think that we don't really know the facts of the sheriff's compression problem. Who would get what? I mean, and you know, are we going to just sit and wait and see what falls out with that? If you put $3.2 million against the problem, and we don't know exactly what the problem is, I can just see the complaints that would come in. You gave him that much money? You know, that's the kind of, you know, if you give someone a very large raise in order to solve that person's compression problem, then I'm going to get a lot of calls from people saying, why in the world did you do that? Well, I don't know why I would do it, because I don't have enough facts at this point. I think we have to truly, and I've been quoted publicly about this, as far as answering questions, what about the rest of our employees? There are compression problems every place you look. And you know, it's a nature of government service, I think, because what everybody makes is a public knowledge. And therefore, you know, in private industry, maybe you don't have that same kind of a problem. I think the county administrator hit it on the head. I think we do need maybe an all-day compensation workshop, however long it takes for us to understand and maybe come up with some reasonable solutions to the problem. And it didn't happen overnight. It's probably going to take a long time to even get close to a solution. So, but throwing $3.2 million at the problem right now is just really, I think it's too early to do that. I think we really need to understand the problem better. And by the way, I don't think that this has to be solved by Thursday night. I think we can go ahead and do what we're going to do on the budget, the millage and all of that, and then make a commitment that we're going to have this workshop, and then afterwards we're going to take whatever actions are required to address the problems.
Commissioner
Over.
Commissioner McClash, then DeSabatino, Mickey Palmer, and Commissioner Hayes.
I'll start kind of backwards from where Commissioner Bustle left off. I agree, it doesn't have to be solved by Thursday night, but it's certainly, you know, the motion sends a message that we're going to solve at least the sheriff's deputy's compression issue. You're right, there's lots of compression issues, but there's only one that has a regional competitive nature to the point that you're losing trained people. While this county certainly has issues with employees that need compensation looked at, you're not having employees that, to my knowledge, maybe outside of an EMS worker going to a fire department, which is, seems like their trend, because we don't provide that stepstone for certifications achieved for additional pay, like we committed 2 years ago, I thought, underneath the STEP program.
May
But
I
the-
respond? May I just
I
add
think,
a comment to your comment?
I don't think he was done with that statement yet.
Go ahead, I don't care if he wants to
Well, you know,
clarify something, I don't.
I think I
It's an
agree with
important
you
issue.
that the compression problem is not the same, and the comparability problem is not the same, but it manifests itself in different ways. In the case of EMS, and in
Sure.
the case of transit, and in
The-
firefighters, you know, you're talking about unionization, and that just is
And I
Serious.
and let me say, I don't have a problem as far as including a EMS discussion as the next step. I'm just saying, let's start somewhere. I mean, this sends a message, okay, we've been here before with the sheriffs, you know, and all I can tell you from where it was before, it gets to be a very dangerous situation for your community when you have public safety workers leaving your community. And I think the sheriff, the 3.2 million is accurate unless the sheriff's going to go against, what he told me the other day, because I asked him to check with Tom. He called me back and he said 3.2 was the accurate number, because I thought it was 3.8. He says, no, the 3.2 settles it. So you have about the 1.5 million from the Aetna savings, and there's about a $1.7 million gap, the cure compression issue, that he says will last for a few years. Now, I just think it's worth at least sending a message that county administrator, meet with the sheriff, if we could get this thing resolved, and that's the intent of the motion. Second step is probably, the EMS workers. I mean, that's probably the second most urgent need of the county. And I'm disappointed because we never fulfilled our STEP program. Supposedly, some attorney opinion said we couldn't do the STEP program. I don't think it was money. I think it was an attorney opinion. That's my recollection. But we had a STEP program that was recommended, and it wasn't acted upon because I recall it, legal opinion about it. So be that as may, you do have an issue with EMS workers. It's a critical issue, or else they wouldn't be talking about unionizing. But it may take 3 years to solve this problem of compression. You're not going to do it overnight. We didn't get here overnight. But all I'm saying is I saw the information from the sheriff. And, when we're at the bottom of the region, it doesn't take a genius to figure out, if you don't do something, plug that hole, you're going to be losing those 20-year deputies, those 15-year deputies. And I'm not here to tell him how to run his sheriff's office. He just got pretty much elected back in with 70 to 80% of the votes, so he pretty much has a pretty good acceptance level for what he's doing out there. But it's a real concern to me, so that's why I proffered up the motion. I think the discussion is good. If you want to soften it so it's, the specific of the motion we could have read back, Mr. Chairman, but I mean, if it needs to be where it focuses, so within the next week too, we bring some maybe closure to this issue of compression if we can. I think it's worth taking 1.5 million or 1.7 out of budget stabilization, to solve the budget compression issue. I know that has a ramification of several years' effect, but also last year, we saved almost $10 million of not having to utilize the budget stabilization monies. So fortunately, we had that. So, I mean, it's not something that you can't solve if you want to solve it. And then, of course, the EMS, I'm not saying they're any less important, but all I know is here you have the opportunity to really solve a big part of the problem of the sheriff's deputies. I don't want to see them leave. I mean, if I was a sheriff's deputy and if I could make $10,000 by going across a bridge or $15,000, I'd go. I mean, especially in these times.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
It's a good discussion. I've come a long way, especially at this meeting. I mean, I wasn't supporting the ball fields, and it's necessary for the children, but we just spent $3.2 million on ball fields for children. It's not all coming out of the reserves, but we're going to be using impact fee money and all that, I understand, but, safety is number one. And, we saw these people coming before us last week, and they're going to come before us again. And, you read the blogs, and there's both sides to each story, but, when those calls come in to North River or West or South County, you know, we want to make sure that we've got the boots on the ground to do this, and we don't need these, you know, he's going to spend $100,000 a year for the first year or two to train each new person. And then, because that's our biggest investment going into it. So, you know, we really need to address that going forward. So, you know, if there's the $1.5 million we're able to save in his department for the healthcare, and then we need another 1.7 somewhere else. And as you said, last year we didn't spend all the reserves, so that we could have in last year. So the money, you know, is
Kind of there.
there. So
You would've been
Ed doesn't see it that way. So, you know,
I think Ed's dying to talk.
so therein lies the problem.
Mickey?
Two quick things. On the FRS litigation, the Florida Supreme Court entertained oral arguments about a week ago, and so the court now has that matter under advisement. If the court should invalidate the statute, we do not expect the court to involve itself at all in how the problem's going to be worked out. You know, we expect the court to simply kick it back to the legislature and say, work it out. So that's all a moving target. So stay tuned on the Supreme Court front. Mr. Chairman, if I could respectfully ask that we allow Mr. Minix to answer this union strike question. He is here, and then he can be on his way. Could we do that?
Yes.
Perchance?
Thank you, Commissioners. Mr. Chairman, it's a simple answer because it's in the Florida Constitution. And Article 6, which provides the right to work provision, says at the end, public employees shall not have the right to strike. Exact quote.
Good.
So that, I think Mr. Palmer was correct in his advice, and it's in the Florida Constitution.
I'm not a constitutional law scholar, but obviously
You
a
remember.
damn good guess on my part.
And you did good.
Just to also add to what Mickey said with regard to the Florida Supreme Court decision, apparently several of the justices did express some skepticism regarding the lower court opinion on that. And for what it's worth, there seems to be at least some justices that are not going to agree to the affirmation of that earlier judgment. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Commissioner Hayes?
Which said they couldn't do it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Cannot strike.
First of all, I want to go back to the presentation that Mr. Hunsinger gave us on this, and the whole premise has been that we cannot tell the sheriff what to do. We cannot, you know, we provide a budget for them, and everybody gets their budget. And I think we have to, the way I see it is we just have to leave it up to the sheriff to make all these decisions. Now, the money returns every year. He may or may not have to spend, but I don't see that that is our issue. That's his issue because he is presenting to us, at least it's coming across to me, that raises for his employees are the most important thing. So I think that's where it should be, and let him resolve this issue. The changes in the savings on the Aetna health insurance, again, that's his decision. And I don't think we should micromanage this at all. To go back to any other discussion, and the other thing too is if we should give extra money to the sheriff for his raises, then I see that, you know, we're going to have to do this for all the other constitutional officers. I just don't see how we can do, but where we are now is Thursday is our budget meeting. That's where our mind should be. Let's go forth for the budget meeting. Let's approve whatever we have to do to get that budget in place. And then this can be readdressed later. The money will not be in there for the sheriff, But, you know, we've got to pretty soon, what we're talking about here is managing the clerk's office, managing supervisor of elections, and tax collector, and the whole 9 yards. And that just has never been our policy to do that. And so I think we're getting a little off course, in my mind anyway. So as far as the 3.2 million, I don't think we can afford to do that and give that to each and every one of them. Maybe I can be convinced that that's really easy and we've got a cookie jar somewhere. But anyway, I just do think that we need to stay on target on what we're doing, and I am not going to support this motion. Like to help the sheriff. We all agree that the sheriff does a good job. That's not the issue. But we need to let there's some discrepancies too in the time off, the sick leave, vacation pay, and all that our employees get and they get over there. So, those are all things he has to take a look at. Not that they shouldn't have them, but I mean, you can't compare it with what we're doing. That's his decision. And I think that, the sheriff got elected in, it's 78% of the vote, as was brought up by Mr. McClash. I agree, too. He knows what he's doing, so let's let him do it. But it has to be within the budget.
Commissioner Bustle?
The only problem is that we have to provide the money for him to
Yes.
do whatever he does. And therefore, we're the ones that are stuck with answering the questions about the money.
May I respond to that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That's the whole point I'm saying, though. We've given him a budget. Now, he can do whatever he wants with that budget.
All right.
He can get rid of cars if he wants. I mean, he can get down to the bare bones, but that is his decision. And I just, it's being pushed on us, and it really shouldn't be. We are trying to do our best, but we have many different areas to deal with.
Well, I agree, you can't tell him what to do. I think we can ask him what he plans to do, though. And I think we really need to see what the problem is that he's going to fix with $3.2 million. So I could probably support a motion that would put some sort of a contingency on how the money is going to be spent so that we can at least know where the issues are going to come from. If you see a contingency plan that, or a compensation plan that, compression plan, I guess is what we really want to call it, that gives somebody a $10,000 raise, then we're going to get asked the questions about how come you did that? I mean, the EMS guys are, they're going to ask that question. Transit guys are probably going to ask it as well. So let's at least know where we're headed on this thing. And I, don't you agree that we're going to have to answer those questions? I mean,
Yes, we're going
whether,
to.
like you say, whether we like it or not, we are in the process, we're in the situation where we have to make a decision on how we fund not only the sheriff, but the other constitutionals.
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
And everyone's different, so I would like to see some sort of a compromise solution here.
It's just kind of proper,
No. No, go ahead, because you had made a couple statements about softening the motion
Yeah.
possibly
And-
and making it maybe in the next 2 weeks or so,
Right,
and
I think Larry makes a good point, if we could have so that the motion includes with the final compensation plan being presented by the sheriff or something like that, so that you have a comfort level. I mean, if you want to get involved with that, I mean, I don't have a problem having the sheriff coming back and saying, all right, here's how I'm going to do the 3.2 million to provide that compensation package. I believe Sheriff Wells did that last time that we were in this problem where we had to try to figure out how to get the compression resolved. So I don't have a problem, however you want to include that coming back. I think that's fair.
May I ask another question?
yes, please.
This is for Ed, I think. The 1.5 million is from healthcare. He also typically saves money in any given year, so he may have as much as $1.7 million that he
Does.
Right.
could devote to it, in which case the problem you could fund the problem.
Right.
And it wouldn't be quite as subject to criticism from outside, because
It's all in
that money
savings.
is all
Right.
money that he would otherwise have had. So You know, with the proviso that, that we get a chance to look at how he would propose to solve the compression problem, then I can support it.
Do that as a friendly amendment if Michael agrees. So the intent is that the final plan comes back for us to look at the total compression plan.
And
We have others
One
that want to
second,
make.
we have a friendly amendment proposed? Is that what you're
I'm
saying?
asking for to modify the.
Yeah, that's a friendly amendment if
Right.
Michael agrees.
And you have no problem with that. Could you, do you have the motion then?
The original or the friendly amendment?
Both.
Both, the original with the friendly amendment.
Here we go.
Good one.
Yes, the original motion was for the county administrator to work with the sheriff to allocate 3.2 million needed for compression for sheriff's deputies. And then the friendly amendment
1,100.
was to, with the proviso that the BCC gets a chance to look at how the sheriff would solve the compression problem.
Doesn't necessarily say where the monies, the dollars, individual
Right.
dollars are
Right.
coming from.
Right, it just,
Ed would like to speak, and then we'll,
but it attacks on to that friendly
Me too,
amendment.
well.
Okay.
well, I'd
No,
like to
why
hear
don't
from
you
Ed
type that?
first, if that's all right,
I wrote it down.
unless you would rather hear from them first. It's
Well,
it's a crapshoot.
the direction of the initial motion is for me to visit with the sheriff about $3.2 million for pay compression. It doesn't clarify whether you're going to change your budget to accommodate $3.2 million. You might have a goal of solving his problem without changing the budget. By using the 1.5 million and whatever money he has left at the end of the year. But the pay compression problem is different than this raise that I'm proposing. It's a separate issue. So it's 1.5 plus 3.2.
you
As
understand.
long, well, I want to make sure that everybody understands,
I
they're
didn't.
two separate issues. Because pay compression is really giving longer-term county employees a raise. It doesn't fix the bottom of the pay range where the sheriff says his starting pay is below everybody else. It doesn't deal with that issue. And the 1.5 I'm proposing, where you would have roughly a 3% raise, is giving, however he wants, all of his employees a raise. That's separate and distinct from $3.2 million to solve pay compression. I want to make sure you understand that. And then the 1.5 to give everyone roughly a 3% raise is already in his budget. If he wants to solve pay compression, takes an additional, I assume, I have seen no documentation, nor I suggest perhaps other than Commissioner McClash, you haven't seen anything about what $3.2 million will do for whom and when. That's still an open issue.
Certified deputies.
So the fundamental question is, are you changing your budget?
It's my understanding the millage is set.
Right, yeah.
And we're not changing the budget. We can make amendments later on as we go through this process of trying to solve the pay compression budget. Does that kind of summarize
As
it?
Commissioner Bussell indicated, you could have a workshop on pay and then take money out of your reserves to solve any and all problem that you want. You don't have to do that before.
We have Commissioner Gallen next, then Whitmore, Hayes, DeSabatino, Bussell, and McClash. Sounds like a law firm.
Yeah,
Sound like a big law firm.
because we have the millage set, I didn't see this, solving this by Thursday night, but we already kind of saw from the motion. I was going to propose, we have a couple slots next week where we typically would do a work section where we could discuss this. And then have some propositions on the table by the end of the month to give some, some assurances. And county employees, I thought with our initial introduction that we're going to be resolving that issue separately anyways. So, but putting as an urgent issue, dealing with the sheriff's department and and EMS as well, and some sort of a. Yeah, oh, no, I know, they're two separate, but if we're dealing with compression with the sheriff's department, we might as well deal with EMS as well, or not. But the point was that we have time, since it's not dealing with this year's budget, to sit down next week and discuss it. and get more details from what the sheriff would use those dollars for.
Commissioner Whitmore.
All right, what if we have this 1.5 for the sheriff of his savings for the healthcare? And you know, he approximately returns back between 1.7 and 1.9 million every year in savings, and we made that commitment. What if he says, I'm not gonna use that for my compression? So that means, with what you're saying, we still gotta find this money. And what about, well, you're gonna raid from the budget stabilization, which we've been trying to maintain until we've still got another 2 or 3 years. And now we're raiding it, we've got EMS, which is very much, just as much with public safety as with the sheriff. Transit, you know, that's another issue. Public safety, and we're only including one part of that. And Mr. Hunsicker, what can you do for public safety in this budget?
Given the adopted tentative millage rate, there's not much you can do other than put a plan together to address the problem. You have two choices. You could plan for the future, or you could reduce your reserves, and we could show you what the reduction in reserves will do in the coming years until we think we will pull out of the position that we're in. Remember, as stated several times in the last few weeks, we're still operating at a deficit position. We're spending more than we're bringing in. If you want to add to the expenditure side of the equation without dealing with the revenue side, you will face the problem of consuming your reserves before we get to equilibrium, which means you would either have to have a drastic tax increase or a drastic reduction in services provided. That's just, as they say, kicking the can down the road. And I wouldn't suggest we do that. We know that at the end of the year, when we close the books, we don't go into a deficit as much as we thought. But we showed you in that last example of the 5-year plan for the reserve for contingency, how we anticipate that fund to play out and be diminished over the next 5 years. And hopefully at the end of that point in time, the revenues of the government equal the expenditures of the government so that you don't need a reserve, a rainy day reserve. But if you tap into it at $1.7 million a year for the next 5 years, that's roughly an $8 million reduction to that rainy day fund. And that's just to deal with the sheriff's pay compression, not the EMS, not the 911, not the EOC staff, and not any of the issues of the other constitutionals. And I can assure you, in my conversations with them, they all have a problem they would like to chat with you about. I can't recommend to you to dip in and take the reserves and think that that won't have an impact on future year budgets. It will.
Because it's recurring.
It's recurring.
It's not just a one-time hit.
If
It's
you
a
pay
recurring hit.
1.7 and give that in compensation increases, it will come every year. The healthcare savings we anticipate to be
That's recurring.
ongoing savings, and therefore you can give raises with that portion of it. But to deal with pay compression with one-time revenues is an illogical equation.
And I read in the Herald, Bradenton Herald, I think, when this all came about, during our last budget meeting, that I think, and I could be wrong, I'm thinking 67 positions were lost in EMS. They quit and went other places too. They all couldn't go to the fire departments, they went other places. But that's what we've got to remember. This is not just a one-time hit. And I don't think it's fair also to ask the sheriff to consider using that 1.9 million for compressions. What are we going to do when maybe some employees may get $1,000 increase and then some may get a $10,000? So we've got to have those specifics. the rest of the employees, the 1,100 employees are watching this too, and knowing that nothing's gonna happen with their paycheck. And if we're rating from this, our reserves, we're gonna have trouble really soon. And again, Robin, you brought this up earlier, the indigent care. I mean, you know, these are hard decisions to just all of a sudden make a motion up here and let's pass it and let's do it. I think we need to be doing what you all suggested a little while ago. You know, we get paid to be here. I'll meet with you 2 or 3 times a week. We can work in a work session in a room where we can work this out. I think it's really not very smart or prudent to be making a decision up here just for a motion. We don't have all the facts out of it. We don't all understand it clear enough to make those decisions. We've got 3,100 employees that are looking at this, plus there's 320,000 citizens. So I just think that we should take a step back and have these work sessions. We're gonna keep our budget the same, and then just figure it out. I don't think that we should be making these rash decisions right now, just on a motion. We haven't had any facts in front of us except what we're just hearing now.
I thought that's what we were gonna do, is
laughing
set
at
up
me,
meetings.
Joe?
I thought that's what we were gonna do, Carol, is to
This
set up
is not
meetings.
enough, this is not enough information for me to make the decisions that you're asking me to make now.
We're just making a decision to have
Have it come
meetings
back,
and
yeah.
to
Mr.
address.
McClash mentioned the 3.2 million.
And he just put a number down, but it's not saying where the money would come from, and I'll be honest with you, that's the part I have some really heartburn over, is that number.
Right.
The pay compression problem, we have to solve it, we need to face it head-on. But it's not gonna affect our budget hearing that's coming up. It's a separate item. It's related in a sense for our long-term plan, for short-term planning, actually, and long-term, but it is separate. This is just saying, we're really putting the pedal to the metal and setting a timeline to where we are going to address this issue and come up with a plan. You say, what if the sheriff says this instead of that? I don't know what the sheriff's going to say. I want to, and I'll be honest, I would prefer that when we have our sit-down, we don't have, and I know you guys don't like this, but I would rather go up on the 4th floor or some other big room someplace where we can sit around a table and we can really have an open and honest discussion and address this issue and try to set aside some of the emotion. We have to look at this logically. It's very emotional, people that don't have the money to survive on. But we have to, we are looking after 320, we're representing 320,000 residents here in Manatee County, plus or minus. And there are a lot of things that are going to be happening, not just in this county and in this state, but in this nation and world in November, by the end of the year. And hopefully some things will be a little bit clearer as to the direction that, how far we can go one way or the other way. But I think it's important that we set up some type of, we set up meetings and work sessions, like Commissioner Gallen said, whether it's next week or the week after. But we need to set it up within the next week or so as to what we're going to do, or not what we're going to do, to have those meetings so we can come to some type of consensus and plan to solve this compression problem. We dealt it, I was very fortunate in Bradenton Beach as the mayor, and I know it's a little dinky town, but we had a severe pay compression problem. Fortunately for us, we were blessed that we addressed it during the boom years. So we were very fortunate. We don't have that luxury here in Manatee County and in this state or country today, but it's not gonna go away, folks.
I know.
Commissioner Hayes.
Okay. Just want to say that I really felt that Mr. Hunsinger had many meetings with the sheriff. That was my understanding. Is that not true, Mr. Hunsinger?
We've had several discussions about how we might implement this, and I visited with each of the other constitutional officers as we moved through the summer.
Okay, because here we are, we're directing you to meet with the sheriff, and you've already done that. Not that doesn't one more meeting wouldn't hurt. I'm certainly not suggesting that. But this is reoccurring money, and it's going to really wipe us out by doing something like this. I just see that, and as far as a workshop goes, I certainly see no harm, and, I mean, there's only positives in having a workshop, have a workshop on this. But if we are going to give him $3.2 million, I do believe that that puts us in a position that let's look at other places he can cut that, make some cuts in his department, the sheriff's department. To, because we're giving, not that we don't want to help him, but it's just that I think it's got to be a give and take on both sides. And I understand that, constituents tell me all the time, they complain about the take-home cars with the sheriff and so forth. And seeing the sheriff's cars used in places they shouldn't be. And so maybe that's something he needs to look at. I know he told me, I suggested this to him last year, to reduce those take-home cars, especially in the administration. And I point blank asked him, and he says, no, I won't do that. Well, I don't think we're at a no, I won't do that position right now. I think we've got some really tough times ahead of us, not only this year, but for the next couple of years. And once you set that salary is set. And then increases on that are based on that salary. And I just don't see how we can do this for, again, I said this before, but let's let the sheriff work this out. I think this is just something that has to be done there. We'll meet with them and we'll take a look at these different items and see maybe we can offer some suggestions to him so that we can work through this. But I still don't support this motion. I wish somebody would just withdraw the whole motion, period. And let's have a workshop and see what we can do.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Can you actually read back everything, because it's been a long time.
An hour.
Let's have the county administrator work with the sheriff to allocate $3.2 million needed for compression for sheriff's deputies, with the friendly amendment with the proviso that the Board of County Commissioners gets a chance to look at how to solve the compression problem.
So it's just exploring at this point, correct?
Some-
Not,
Give us
It's
a
not
definite
being
amount.
specific, that's why we have to have meetings to allocate. It's not saying where all that money's
Right.
coming from. We've talked about different things, but it's not being,
It's going to take a budget amendment.
Commissioner,
Am I still on?
It's going to take a
I hadn't
budget
finished.
amendment.
You're all.
Commissioner, no, I apologize. No, you were not still on. Excuse me, I don't mean that harshly. Commissioner DeSabatino was commenting.
originally I was
and-
going to say,
Can I have some dialogue with him then? When
I
she's
will allow,
done,
go
let her
ahead.
finish
okay,
that.
I was going to say up to 3.2, but this is not voting on to give them the money, this is the vote to discuss where the money's going, so I wanted to make that clear.
Where coming from, and/or coming from.
And it going from and to at the same time, correct?
And addressing the pay compression, Commissioner.
Got it?
Dialogue.
Shut up.
Would
Am I
you
on
be
there?
willing to have a workshop to do that? We don't need to have a vote today on anything.
Yes, we.
Let's just move forward and have a workshop, we discuss it there, then we bring something back.
Commissioner Bustle.
One thing that we haven't talked about, and I remember you already brought up when I was mayor, so it's okay for me to say when I was mayor. We hired a consultant to help us solve the compression problem.
That's what we do.
And they actually came back with a good plan on how to phase it in. And I have to tell you, this is not something that we can solve next week.
No.
We may have plenty of time to have a meeting next week, but we need data. We need to know what is the compression problem that we're talking about. The sheriff has, you can get data from the sheriff and you can take the names off of it and you can show exactly where the problem lies. Same way with the county employees and all the other divisions within the county. Maybe the other constitutionals would have the same problem. But we need to understand what it is. And then we need probably, if we have the expertise within the county to solve it, fine. If not, we need to get somebody that knows how to do it. And whether or not you can do it or not is still a big question in my mind because of the structural problems of being a government agency.
I think we use Cody and Associates.
Cody,
Commissioner
that's who it
McClash.
was, yeah.
Well, the sheriff already had somebody do a study,
Right.
and it's been updated, so I think that information's there. the general intent of the motion is basically, you have this $1.5 million savings in healthcare cost, and you have only now a $1.7 million difference to solve the compression issue that the sheriff has confirmed to me more than once, that it's 3.2 for certified deputies, Mr. Hunsinger. And so the intent of the motion is just say, county administrator, sheriff, meet, come back at a meeting, and then hopefully the sheriff would say, maybe there's other dollars that he has that he could solve the money with, and we don't have to think that hard. But I think we're so close to solving a compression issue, which is a very important public safety issue, it solves one piece of the issue. And then, you know, the whole goal would be to come back as well, you know, with EMS, you know, when the data is there. I mean, certainly. But I'm going to just call the question because, I think we're,
Before you do that.
all right.
Nobody seconded it.
Well,
That's because I just said it.
No, she asked me to comment. I said, nobody
moving on to
seconded
the next person,
nobody
I
seconded.
would ask that you, there's just too many
All right, if there's
people
too many
want to
people,
talk
all right, all
about
right.
this
No
issue.
problem.
I know it's
I know it's been going on
running
long,
long,
so-
but it is an
I was just trying to
important
help you, but If you
issue.
want to keep it going.
I think we need a little more discussion. Commissioner DeSabatino?
I came back on.
You already did, spoke, right?
No, I came back on again.
Okay.
Can I go?
Yeah, please.
Okay, well, maybe this would be a real compromise with everyone. Because the motion is for having the county administrator and the sheriff to discuss. Why don't we morph it into a workshop where we all discuss it and not just,
Yes.
because a lot of time, I'll be honest,
Yeah.
Part A will say something and Part B will say something, and I don't know what therein lies the difference. So let's all get together in the same room and put it out there.
Right.
You did say that getting together, and I kept saying workshop, so I apologize for that, but.
Getting together, workshop, they have to get together, have a work session agenda, so that was the intent.
Ed, please.
If I could, I like that idea.
Yeah. 'cause you're good.
Everybody hears what everybody else hears.
To say,
If I could suggest on the motion, you have no data other than the representation that the sheriff needs 3.2. I wouldn't mind a motion about getting together, but I would suggest you take the dollar amount out until you know what the dollar amount is.
Yes.
Well, you know, with all due respect, if I can't trust the sheriff when he says something, if I can't relate it to you, I'm insulted by that. So with all due respect, it gets to the point where you either believe me, Ed, that I had a conversation with the sheriff and that's what he said, and if the sheriff wants to come down here and change his mind, then shame on him. But, I mean, if you don't believe me that I had a conversation with the sheriff and that's what he said, and I confirmed it with 2-3 telephone calls with him, I wouldn't bring it up if I didn't have it confirmed.
Just a comment from the chair, if that's all right. As I said earlier, several times, it's the motion with the 3.2, that's the part I have the greatest heartburn over, but the way the motion reads, it doesn't say where the money's going to be coming from. You know, the sheriff needs to is going to be, not needs to, he's going to be stepping to the plate, as we have to, somehow, some way. We just need to get together. It's not saying the Board of County Commission is going to vote for 3.2 million to come from our stabilization fund or anywhere else that it may be tucked away. It's just not saying that. At least that's not what I'm interpreting, and as everybody's shaking their head in confirmation that that's the way they understand the motion, I don't have a problem with I would prefer it out, but I don't necessarily have a big problem with it in there. Commissioner Hayes.
Well, I'll pick up on what you're talking about. I do have a big problem with that $3.2 million in there, and I'll be very straightforward and direct on it. Yes, let's just, just because, now, Mr. McClash, if the sheriff told you 3.2 million, that's fine. But this is the board. We're the ones that have to make that decision. And we need to get together. You think we don't? You've been on here for 20 years. I would have thought you'd know better.
Commissioner Hayes, with all due respect, the motion says, let's get together with the sheriff and let's do it next week. Let's just simplify this and stop talking about it And let's just have a meeting with the sheriff next week, and 3.2, he could either confirm or deny.
I guess I lost the floor, Mr. Chairman, but what I was going to say there,
Sorry.
We're having, I
She looked
kinda
at me
let
to
it-
have
I
dialogue.
didn't
kinda
have
let it go into-
dialogue.
I know, but I kind of let it go into that, and I apologize. That
That's
was
all
the
right,
chair's fault.
that's all right, I'll let you get away with it. No, I'm just saying here, let's have the workshop. I just don't want to vote on any motion today that involves 3.2 million, involves any money in there. We're not discrediting that the sheriff told you that. We're just saying we don't want to do it, some of us. Now, I don't know whether I have 4 people, whether I have 3 friends on that or not, but that's the way I feel about it. I have a real issue with that 3.2 million being in that motion. I don't even see any reason for a motion. Let's just decide we're going to have a workshop, and that's it.
I have a suggestion. Might as well get down to just voting, so we get this off center here.
One more time?
I know there's a main motion on the floor, but with regards to 3.2 being in the motion, you know, let's see if it flies without the 3.2 being in the motion.
Can I amend the motion? Help me with Robert's rules, I'm tired.
You can. I'd
like to amend the motion.
Amend the motion.
To say exactly what has been stated on the motion, except eliminate the amount.
3.2.
Yeah.
Or
3.2.
the other part is up to.
Up to, sorry. Well, no, yeah, up to,
No.
you're right. Take out up to 3.2.
No,
It wasn't-
include up
It didn't
to,
say.
and that
No.
way
Hold
it's-
on, we have too
No.
many people. Could you read the motion on the floor with the friendly amendment?
Sir.
It's not binding.
I know.
Have the county administrator work with the sheriff to allocate 3.2 million needed for compression for sheriff's deputies with the friendly amendment with the proviso that the Board of County Commissioners gets a chance to look at how to solve the compression problem.
So the motion would be to take the 3.2 out and have it state funds
Without-
too.
Yeah, I would put monies.
How about if we just
Instead
do
of
a
3.2.
substitute motion and ask the sheriff to meet with us next week to resolve the compression issue, to try to resolve
I
it?
think that's wonderful.
Second,
All right?
That, I can,
Talking about
even I
dialogue,
can
I
vote
think
for
everybody
that.
knows the amounts and everything by now. so-
Okay.
yeah.
We have a substitute motion on the floor, and he will repeat it for you.
Substitute motion is just to basically have a meeting with the sheriff next week to work out the pay compression issue.
Start the ball rolling. Well, right. We're not going to work it out in one meeting.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, just
attempt to work it,
to
whatever you
start the
want.
process
You may.
to.
You may, I mean, it's to work it out.
Okay.
Start
Work out
working
the
out
pay
this.
compression.
Yeah,
Please try to have it before Thursday, because I'm leaving town on Thursday.
all right.
Mr. Chair,
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Are you clear with the motion on the floor?
Second.
Commissioner Whitmore?
Yes, we are clear with it.
Okay. Commissioner Bussell is next. Do you want to, you
He just
gonna
wants
let
it
the floor
before
go?
Thursday.
Yeah, I am leaving town next Thursday, so I won't be able to attend the workshop, and I really
Needs to
wanna be
happen
there.
before Thursday, if not the following week.
Yeah, that's fine, whenever,
If
I
not-
think we all need to be there, so the intent
Friendly
is.
amendment, if it can't happen
Tuesday
before,
afternoon.
Tuesday
Well,
afternoon.
I'm not gonna set a date, I think I'll leave
No,
it up
I
to the
just-
chair,
If it can't happen before Thursday, it'll be the following week,
whenever.
as a friendly amendment.
Whenever we all.
Friendly
can.
amendment, all right?
Yep.
Got that? Okay.
Trust you,
Commissioner, I'm taking you off then? At least
Vote quickly.
Sabatino, are you clear?
Let's vote.
Yeah, I
Be
didn't
yes.
write down my
Commissioner
questions, so
Whitmore.
it's out the
I
door.
just, we have 1,100, 1,200 other employees that are listening to this. Don't forget the EMS, the
Right.
public safety, which is EMS,
get it.
and the other employees.
Absolutely.
And just,
All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposition? No opposition. Thank you.
and
Commissioner McClash.
just a point, because there's a 3% increase, I don't want everybody to miss, in the county administrator's recommendation for those employees. I just want to highlight that at the end.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now,
I
Commissioners'
might
comments.
hesitate next time Ed would like to go
Ed
first on commissioner comments.
There's a reason he stays quiet.
Now, we can go through commissioner comments, or we can take a 5-minute break.
No.
Are you guys fine? Okay.
wanna go home.
Commissioner DeSabatino.